Okay. So the Nakuda that we are continuing on from is since Nakuda started in perek. We discussed the Nakuda that by a person. Perek discussed the Nakuda by a person. There are 5 levels from his chachma to his asiyah. Seichel, midas, machshava, dibur, maisa, and the highest point of a person is his seichel, until it schleps all the way down. The seichel is being to the midas. Like we explained last time, that seichel is completely objective, midas is subjective. It's a whole different world. Then it goes to the world of machshava, which is an action done by the brain. Then the world of dibur, which is the way you plan. And then the world of maisa, then comes down into actuality. It's mamish a whole different realm. It's completely a different realm between these inyanim. Nevertheless, the Nevertheless, so we say, so by a person, the chachma is a huge travel from Asiya. However, like the Eibishter, we say the chachma is like Asiya. The chachma in Asiya is Shavin. Can I split my screen? Do you see the PowerPoint?
I see it.
Okay.
Yeah,
so okay, so let's go on to this slide here. Now, let's just take a look at this Indian here. It's a huge mechudishtik Indian, and mechudishtik, I would say, in our realm of thinking. It says like this. I just kind of placed it from the Tanya. Said by the Eibishter Chachma V'Asiyah Shavin. It's actually interesting. In the beginning of the perek, I don't have it posted up here. At the beginning of the perek, the Alter Rebbe starts with a lower level and then actually grows to a high level. The beginning of the perek, the Alter Rebbe says that the distance between Chachma to Asiyah, how far our Chachma is from our Asiyah is, our Chachma is like the Eibishter's Asiyah, and the Eibishter's Chachma is like so much beyond that. It's almost like if we're 5 steps away, the Eibishter is 5 steps higher beyond that. That's the way it starts off sounding. But then the Alter Rebbe goes off, even in a much stronger way. We can't express any inyan of Chachma. You can't say any type of Chachma. That's only something which is in the realm of Chachma, that you can say you can't even say about the Eibishter. It's not understand that you can't understand the Eibishter because he's so deep. The Eibishter is not b'chlal b'geder hasaga, and Alter brings us out by saying, someone who said about the Eibishter that's not possible to understand is like saying on Eza Chochma, Roma Amukos, say it's such a deep svara, I couldn't hold it in my hands. So to the Shekol Shemay Yitzchak line, everyone who would hear that should laugh. There's no the Chosha Mishra in Mishach's Nefal Asiyah Gashas and Spester. The idea of Chosha Mishra is only on being means that there's something which is here. So to the Eibishter, so that's the Eibishter, the idea of Seichel is mamish like Asiyah mamish. And they tell a story, just before we go back to the Artzachos, they tell a story that in Dvinsk, the Rabbanim, there was the Arsameach and there was the Rogachover. The Arsameach was more of a heavy set person. The Rogachover was very, very thin. He was a small, thin, loafen Rav. So there was one time a kid who heard 2 adults in shul discussing very aggressive Rav. Who's the bigger Rav, the Meir Simcha or the Rogachover? And the kid is saying that he doesn't get it. He said, "What's the big shaila? Meir Simcha is the bigger Rav, but she's much bigger Rav. It's the Rogachover is a thin little guy. The Meir Simcha is this bigger Rav." So his father, on the way home, he asked his father, like, "What was big shaila?" So father explains to him, that's not what big means. Big means that it's a seichel, it's a different type of bigness. He says, these adults always have a terrace for everything. But the is that when you speak about a Mishus means big begashmius. Say svara, the two worlds don't speak the same language at all. And by the Eibishter, it's two separate worlds. And the Rebbe actually points out that the Rebbe points out that even more so in Mishush and in Seichel, these are two worlds of Nivroim. There's a connection between Chusha Mishush and Seichel. They both exist in the world of Nivra. The Eibishter is beyond, as even the comparison is not a good comparison because it's really much beyond that. So just to understand, just to give a few more ideas on this Nakuda. Just to give a few more ideas on this Nakuda that you can't even compare it. I think there's actually a word by a chassid. I may have the names incorrect, but I think there's a chassid out there by the name Zalman Zezmer. Zalman Zezmer is very, very big chassid out the Rebbe, and I think he's had the Talmud Pillow Parcher. Actually, what brought Reb Zalman, if I'm not mistaken, what brought Reb Pillow Parcher to Chassidus was Parsha Zohar, and he was around where Zalman Zezmer was, and he saw Parsha Zohar, that hatred. Last week we just read Parsha Zohar. He saw that hatred that Zalman Zezmer expressed to Amalek. And he came up to Zalman Zezmer and said, how could a person nowadays, you hear the story of the past, and have this feeling of disgust to Amalek? It's something, how do you have such a real feeling of disgust? So he said, for that you have to go to Alter Rebbe. You have to understand what Amalek is. When you understand what Amalek is, you have a real feeling of disgust. So that's what actually brought the Pillar Parcher to the Alter Rebbe. But so the Pillar Parcher was a huge coin in Niglan Chassidus. He said about Reb Zalman Zezmer was also a huge coin about in Niglan Chassidus, but his word was as follows. He said like this. He said, Zalman Zezmer legabi the Alter Rebbe is like a cat. And Zalman Zezmer legabi the Alter Rebbe is like a cat. And he explained, it's not pshat that the distance between a human being and a cat is a distance between Zalman Zezmer and Alter Rebbe, but rather legabi the Alter Rebbe, if Zalman Zezmer and a cat is the same thing. So again, not pshat that the distance between a human being and a cat, that is, Zalman Zezmer is compared to a cat to the Alter Rebbe, but the Gabi the Alter Rebbe, if Zalman Zezmer and a cat is mamish the same thing.
No, I understand, but it's not like mamish the same. It just means like it's such a darkistic achillik, so in comparison, so it's not much of a difference.
Okay, so I'm not going to answer your question necessarily, but let's discuss this Indian, and let's see if when you finish discussing the Indian answers, the question's answered. The word's like this.
Okay.
So the Kutador and this Nageti also. When you speak about Kamus, when you speak about Be'inare, something's much greater. There's two reasons why something is much greater. The simple reason is it's much greater in Kamus. In Kamus, it's much, much greater. Because there's so much more of whatever this thing is, so much more whatever this thing has. So therefore, the smaller object is like nothing. It's bottom mamish. It's bottom of tears because it's so worthless. You got $1 billion. You have 1 cent. It's worthless. You're a multi-millionaire, and you lose a cent. The cent is mamish bottom of tears. It's got no worth. Right? A cent has no worth. A multi-millionaire. 1 cent, you lose a cent. Who cares? That's one type of bittul. A bittul in Kamus. So on one hand, yes, the cent is bottle and there's no value at all. However, if you think about it for a moment, what is $1 million? What's $1 billion? What's a multi-millionaire? He is billions and billions and billions of cent. In other words, cent does have some type of twisted bakim. A cent does have the idea of a cent has value. Nervous, you don't have enough of that. If you're able to multiply what you have 1,000,000 times over, then you would, then it would have value. But just because you don't have enough of what you have is good. What you have is a good thing. Because though it's so valuable, because you don't have enough of it, so therefore it's bottom of tears. That is, if there's a bittul b'mtzias mitzad lack of kamos, there's not enough. The quantity is lacking. Now there's another type of bittul b'mtzias in a lack of eichos. Lack of eichos means that what you're dealing with is bechal has no shavius compared to what I'm speaking about. For example, you got a chacham gadol, you got a chacham adir, a huge chacham. Then you have a chacham cotton. Chacham cotton is small compared to the chacham gadol, not big enough. Then you have a shaiter. A shaiter kol inyan shtus, he speaks shtusim, he has no seichel involved. If the shaiter would be 3 times over or 10 times over, 1,000,000 times over, will he be any closer to the chacham? No. The shaiter, what the shaiter has to offer, if you multiply that 1,000,000 times, he won't be close to the chacham, because what the chacham has is a whole different echos to what the shaiter has to offer. If it's a chacham katan, the chacham katan pshat is that there's a difference of kamos. There's a difference of kamos. So then, yes, you don't have enough. If you could multiply yourself many times over, you would have value. So even now, you can't say that you're mamish nothing, because you have something of value to you. It's just your bittul is what, because of what, in the words of Rabbi Yochanan, your bittul is not because of what you do have. Your bittul is because of what you don't have. Nish mitzad the yom, mitzad the name. What you do have is good. What you don't, the issue is that you don't have enough of it. That is if it's a bittul of kamos. If it's a bittul of echos, however, a bittul of echos says that what you have is worthless. Even the of you, even what you do provide is still worthless. You can have 1,000,000 times over what you do provide. It's not going to give me anything. You still haven't even come onto the surface of what you're talking about. The shaiter can speak all the shtusim in the world. He could be a magnificent shaiter, but he's still not reaching the level of the chacham. And there's no hisyachs at all between these two things. So that is when that's the idea of the bittul mitzad ha'echos. Mitzad ha'echos is that we're on completely different playing fields. That even what you do have to come to the table with is nothing worth. So the vote of Reb Zalman Zesmer is the vote of Reb Hillel Parcher is saying is that whatever idea, even the Torah of Zalman Zesmer, even his Torah is al derech lekatz Torah. The Alter Rebbe's Torah, the Alter Rebbe is Gilel, because the Alter Rebbe's Torah is with such a core of Eibishter that Zalman Zesmer is in a whole different playing field. That the Be'ein Harech is so great. There's no difference between him and the cat. In other words, like this.
After it's al derech between Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi. You'd have to actually forget it. Why couldn't you build off what you have? You have to build off what you have already. It's Kedusha. Why do you have to forget Dafke?
Right, exactly. That's the right. In other words,
you say that. So if it's a different echos, so it's kilu. Bavli and Shalvi is going to say the same type of thing. It's a different echos. It's
that's what I was about to say, though. In our world, I don't think we have the correct nefesh of Yerushalmi to realize that it's a different echos of Bavli. I mean, we could see a different Mahalach and Machshava, but I don't think anyone in our generation sees a stira between Bavli and Yerushalmi that they have to forget Bavli to learn Yerushalmi. But I see, who was Reb Sheshes? Who had to forget some Reb Zera? Who was it? No, some Mem or Nisa to forget. Right? And he was seeing the nefesh hadover. So when you're seeing that nefesh hadover, there's two different nefashas. And just in very simple mathematical terms, if you want to say, if you're talking about infinity, the gabe infinity, 1 and 1,000,000 is the same. Real infinity, and I don't go into it if infinity, if a number is shaykh equal. If you have real infinity, 1 and 1,000,000 is the same. Take away 1 from infinity, you're left with infinity. Take away 1,000,000 from infinity, you're left with infinity. Because infinity is not a kamastika, more numbers than 1. Infinity is a different echos, and infinity is a different realm of being. And in that realm of being, 1 in a million both don't exist. Take away 1, take away a million, the Chal doesn't exist. So that's so the Nekudas over here is the Gabi the Eibishter, and for us, I don't know if a human could really understand it. We for sure can't understand it. Maybe we could sense it. This idea that Chochma is nothing means we're using our Chochma, and to us Chochma has value. The Gabi the Eibishter, Chochma is not even a playing field. The Eibishter created Chochma. The Eibishter is beyond the entire realm of Chochma. To the Eibishter, Chochma and Mishrash Mamish is the same thing. Chochma says the same thing. It's not only pshat that the Eibishter is higher than Al Chochma. It's be'inarech mamish. I heard a good word on these terms. Again, I don't. I think this is something which is not shaykh to Havanas b'nei Adam, because whenever we go with Havana, it's seichel. Something that we could go with Emuna and go with, if you want to say that the Neshama could sense such a thing. I heard a word, actually, Rabbi Levi Weinberg in South Africa has a word, it was a Yitzkistev. He was saying the difference when you learn Tanya, you don't learn Tanya. He said, a person doesn't learn Tanya. So he says, the more I learn, the more I accomplish in life, the closer I'm getting to the Eibishter. The more I do, I'm slowly climbing the ladder to ascend closer and closer to the Eibishter. When you learn Tanya, if you want to get closer to the Eibishter, what you need to do, Tanya says, it's in perek Zayin Tanya, that what? What Tanya? That come closer. Where does the Eibishter rest? Where there's bittul. How do you want to come close to the Eibishter? Come close to the Eibishter is through bittul, by taking yourself out of the way. As long as we are there, as high and great and steichel dik and all our scholars could be, that Eibishter is bein arich. How do we come close to the Eibishter? Through bittul. Take us out of the picture, then we can come close to the Eibishter. Because the word of Eibishter is bein arich. That's the word of. I heard this voice from Gabriel afterwards. I know she was being recorded, but afterwards I think I saw it in the Nefesh HaChaim maybe. What's Pshat Torah Lishma? I don't know if you saw this. So, what's Gabriel once told me that someone once told him, what's the Lubavitchers? Torah Lishma L'Shem Eibishter L'Shem HaSeichel Atzmai L'Shem HaSkolas.
Right, that's you're saying from Reb Chaim Volozhin, the Nefesh Chaim says a story like
that. That's what Reb Chaim Volozhin says. So I heard the Meister from Gabriel almost, I don't want to say making fun. Nefesh Chaim was Nefesh Chaim, but like he says, someone told me like these Tanya is all about Eibishter. L'Shem HaSkolas Atzmai. But what's the word? Eibishter is not in Haskola, because the Eibishter to the Eibishter Haskola is bein arich. What is Torah? Torah is Kedusha. Torah is Eibishter. The Eibishter in Torah is beyond the idea of Haskola, because the Haskola God Eibishter is not really Tevis market. That's not. I thought when I was, thanks to Daniel Gross, I was looking through Nefesh HaChaim little or some of the Yesodis of Nefesh HaChaim. I saw that word and like I remember the word real. But that's about that. This is the furthest marshal that we could give in our understanding. The idea of what is our highest level, seichel, and our lowest level, asiyah mamish. Like the Rebbe says, both of these be'emes are in our world. Both of these are in our world. Both of these are in Olam and Nivroim, and therefore both of these still have a shaykhis. But the Eibishter is bein arich. The highest seichel is still bein arich, because the Eibishter is a different type, not only a different type of kamas, a whole different type of eichos. So that is the Chelet Hasbaras and Dvarim here in Perek Tes.
So till now, till Perek Tes, when we said someone says of the Eibishter you can't understand, we looked at it as a Maila. Now all of a sudden in Perek Tes, you say you can't understand the Eibishter. Now it's saying it's Nishkei Mala. You're actually limiting the Eibishter and saying the Eibishter is a Davar Sichel.
But how good you can only appreciate this word after learning Tulia. Saying you have to learn Ganstanya. Who said it? Someone said that he slept for many years on a bench, and after he said that it wasn't worth 40 years on a bench, he said, if because of that I lost one day of Hanachas Tefillin, it wasn't worth it. So someone commented to that what he's saying is true, but he only came to that appreciation because of the 40 years they slept on the bench. Had he not slept on the bench for those 40 years, he wouldn't have had that appreciation. The appreciation is true that if it took away from one day of Anach's tefillin is more important than all the bench sleeping. But you only come to that appreciation by sleeping on the bench. So after we learn all the Tanya, then we can come to this Hakara. Okay, so that is just a Nakuda perek test that the Eibishter is just to be malbish this Nakuda a little why I call that the Chusha Mishnus, it's a whole different Eichus. Sorry, it's Seichel. The guy with the Eibishter is a whole different Eichus. It's not even a compliment. Okay, let's discuss a Nakuda in perek Yud, if we're ready to move on.
Yeah.
So in perek Yud, let's test in Yud. And we actually, with this, we're going to give just a tier klali actually on Shar Hayichud VeHemuna, on what the approach to Shar Hayichud VeHemuna is. We started discussing here about the all the different midas and spheres of the Eibishter. That even though they're the inner to the Eibishter, still they are miyuchad with Eibishter. Even though the spheres are so much lower than the Eibishter, they're still one with Eibishter. And in perek Yud, the Alter Rebbe expresses that in Adam. L'shachach has the eisen, l'sachach has the eisen, l'sabres the eisen, all the different kasais. The shachach could be a shin smallish, shin yamanis. There's different makars for either ones. Most people say l'sachach. There are different rayas from the chiltas and different majoshim. But the good is that the chachmei emes kara isa b'shem eiros try to give us an understanding of the yichud HaKadosh Baruch Hu midei stuff. Just one ha'ara, just before I get into the Biur Advarim. I might run a little late, if that's okay. I heard a word. I don't remember if I heard from a bill or a Paltil. I heard an interesting word. In Chakira, when we speak about the Eibishter, we use Lashon Shefa, Hashpa. In Chassidus, Kabbalah use the word Ur. And basically, the reason is that each one has a mile and each one has a chisar. The mind of using the word shefa is that shefa is not defining what it is. Shefa just means something an energy has come out. There's no definition of lights. You're not defining it anyway. Something, a power and energy came out from the Eibishter. That is why the Chachmei Chakir use the word shefa. In Chassidus, we use the word Ur. Mitzad, even though Ur gives a certain gather, like ha'ara, but it brings out the idea that it's miyuchad with makari, and it's just completely. First of all, it's without any effort, and it's miyuchad with makari. It's not like shefa. Shefa shows it leaves the mocker. Ur shows much more. That's still miyuchad with makari. So that's what we find in the Kud of Ur. Okay, but let's so in perek Yud we say that we bring the marshal of we explain how the Eibush is miyuchad with the spheres. Shubaderch mashal kein yichud ar shemesh b'seich gufkad hashemesh. This is like the yichud of the shemesh in the ar hashemesh in the gufkad hashemesh. And we did bring this marshal already in perek Gimel. And what I want to do a little is compare the way it is in perek Yud and the way it is in perek Gimel, and question a little the way it's perek Yud to come to a little havana of the difference of what these two mashalim are doing. So this is what you have here is perek Yud. That this is called Ma'ar, but also as Ma'ar HaGadol. The Alter brings a Makar, a Raya, that the Guf HaShemesh is called Ma'ar. First of all, the Alter feels necessary to tell us called Ma'ar and bring a pasuk. And Ziva Nisa Mispashe, the Mer Mimen Nikra Ar. And the Ziva which goes out of it is called Ar, Kashakazi Lekim La Ar Game. And we basically explain that there, that's all, and that's an echod mamish when it's in the guf kad hashemesh. It leaves the guf kad hashemesh and becomes separate. So this is the way the master is brought in perek Yud. Are you seeing the screen still?
Yeah.
And then in perek Gimel, it brings it differently. In perek Gimel, which I just posted. So Ziva Aram is Spasm Gov Hashemesh nearly and Kol Merel Arts Kala Elam. And the Alter just tells us that the Shemesh which shines and there's a Ziv, and the Alter doesn't feel necessary to bring any The Alter Rebbe doesn't feel it necessary to bring any mashalim or any rayas, and in perek Yud
there is one raya. You just said Hameil Aretz V'la Darim. So
the Shemesh, which signs the. No, I think the Alter Rebbe is just borrowing the term. I'm going to put the two next to each other. Alter Rebbe is just borrowing the term. Alter Rebbe is saying when the sun shines down into the world, he's just borrowing the term of the tefillah, but I don't think that he's bringing it as he's not showing us that it's called the shemesh or anything. So the main thing is in perek Yud. I'll try and make it a little short. In perek Yud, going back to perek Yud, the R is called Mar, and it brings a pasuk, and the Nitzam Espasha is called R. A few interesting changes. Why is that? Why does Alter Rebbe find that necessary? So actually, it's the Sichiyut, the Skisiyut HaShachav Ches. The Rebbe speaks about this Nakuda, very interesting beer, which gives us clarity about the whole purpose in the whole setup here in Shar Hayichud. And the Rebbe is basically like this: Shar Hayichud is split up into two different parts. You got Aleph through Zion, and then Ches till the end. Aleph through Zion is discussing Nivroim, the creations of the Eibishter, how the creations of Batal Mimtzias. The creations of Batal Mimtzias, the guy with the Eibishter. Ches. Further, we go into how the spheres are Batal to the Eibishter. But there's a big difference here. By the Nivroim, they Batal Mimtzias. But let's look here by the spheres. We don't say the spheres are Batal to the Eibishter. We are using the word by the spheres. Inyan Hayichud Shalakadosh Baruch Hu Midaisav. The way the spheres are miyuchad, the way the spheres are one with the Eibishter. We're talking about the achdus of the spheres of the Eibishter. That was not a good kind of choice. I don't know if you can see it. How the spheres are miyuchad with the Eibishter. And the key word here is the yichud. When you speak about spheres of kedusha, the spheres are miyuchad and one with the Eibishter. And that is the point of perek Ches Yud, the yichud of the spheres of the Eibishter. Mashenka, when you go into perek Gimel, you talk about Nivroim are never miyuchad to the Eibishter. Nivroim are bottle. Nivroim are bottle b'mtzias. The bottle b'mamish b'mtzias, the guy with kuf kadosh shemesh. And Nivroim, it's not an idea of yichud, the idea of bittul. Because Nivroim cannot be miyuchad to the Eibishter. Only koyach ruchni can be miyuchad to the Eibishter. Whenever you're dealing with a koyach gashmi, it can't be miyuchad, it's bottled to the Eibishter. So therefore, that's going to be Yeshayat Advarim here. The first half of Shar Hayichud VeHemuna is telling us that the bittul hanivraim, how any nivra gashmi, any nivra is bottled to the Eibishter. Second half of Shar Hayichud VeHemuna is bringing out how the koyach ruchnim are one with the Eibishter. They're ruchni, it could be one with the Eibishter. And that is what the Alter Rebbe here is showing us. And this is what the differences of these mishalim are doing. Very interesting Nakuda. You have the shemesh, right? What the shemesh is a koyach for itself. The shemesh also shines, right? So there's really two aspects of the shemesh. There's the being of the shemesh, and then there's the idea that the shemesh is here to shine. Besides the shining, the shemesh has many other energies and powers and purposes. So now, the light of the shemesh, how does the shemesh look at the light of the shemesh? So it depends which part of the shemesh. The shemesh which is here to be, not to shine. The shemesh which is here to be, the light is something that happens to come out of the shemesh, but not really valuable to the shemesh, and it's completely bottled to the shemesh. But then you have the aspect of the shemesh, that the shemesh is here to be a more. The idea of the shemesh being a source of light, so then the light, you can't say the light's bottled and the light's worthless. The light is what its job is. The shemesh is here to shine, so the light has an importance to the shemesh. It's importance in the way that it's miyuchad with him. So there's two aspects in shemesh. There's the shemesh, the way it is for itself, just to be, and all the other energies. And then there's the shemesh, the way the shemesh is a more. So I'll use the word, the shemesh mitzat atzmoi, and the shemesh as a more. So the way the shemesh mitzat atzmoi looks at Or, he says, Or happens to come from me. It's worthless. That's not what I'm interested in. The Or is bottled in tears. That is perek Gimel. In perek Yud, we're talking about the Shemesh's second characteristic, that the Shemesh is a mar. The Shemesh is a mar at the level of Elikus, which says, I'm here to be Mashpia Or, I'm here to be Mashpia Spheres. Nevertheless, the way the spheres are still Yochim the Eibishter, they're completely one with the Eibishter. You can't use the word Yichud, Bittul, but the word Yichud. So therefore, if you look back at perek Gimel, let's look back at perek Gimel. I'll stretch this out again a little. If you look back at perek, look back at perek Gimel, the Nivraim, which are not miyuchad with the Eibishter, and this level of Shemesh, it doesn't use the word Mar here at all. Shemesh, which happens to shine, but it's a Shemesh. Here we talk about the Shemesh, the way the Shemesh is for itself, the way the Shemesh is an Atzmi, the way the Shemesh is to be a Shemesh, or is something that happens to come out from it, but its bottom says it's worthless and it's got no entity. So that is when we talk about Nivroim and the way Nivroim are bottled to the Eibishter. Masha Ein came in perek Yud. Going back to perek Yud, we're speaking about the way the Shemesh is a mar. So first of all, we're giving the Shemesh a new job. Who said the Shemesh is a mar? Where do we decide the Shemesh is a mar? There's a pasuk for that. So Kein Yuchad HaShemesh Mar. The Alter says the Shemesh has a second job. The Shemesh has a job called Mar. The Shemesh, besides for just being all the energies that the Shemesh is, it's here to shine. And like the pasuk says, it's a Mar Agadol. It's here to shine. And the Alter tells us, when is that shine called Yom? When is that shine called Ar? Yom. Dafka, when it's out in this world, when it shines out in a revealed state, that's when it's called Ar. But when the Ar is still bim kairei, it's miyuchad imay b'tachza yichad, there's complete achdus, there's complete yichud. In other words, this level of Mar, even though it's a level of Mar, which is coming to shine, when the Ar is still in its source, the Ar has no presence of being, it's completely miyuchad with the Eibishter. And that's what the Alter Rebbe is showing here, that the Eibishter is bein harech from all Nivroim. The Alter is sort of explaining a conflict here. We're saying the Eibishter is bein harech, but still the spheres are one with the Eibishter. How could you be one if you're bein harech? So that's what we bring out to the Mar. That the Mar, the Mar is here. There's a connection to those spheres, but in the way that the miyuchad ima b'tachlis, that there's no separate metzias klal. So again, so that's the difference between perek Gimel and perek Gimel and perek Yud. In perek Gimel, we're talking about bittul. Nivroim, it's bittul, and therefore just use the word shemesh because there's no the sun's not looking to shine. The earth coming out of the sun is just happens to come out, so therefore it's bottled. Got no tvisas mark. It's got no value at all. Mashenki in perek Yud, we're showing how yes, it's a source, and therefore they could be miyuchad with him, but still the way they are in the source, they're completely bottled in tzias. So that is the difference between the two parakim here. And just
so one second, you're saying in perek Yud you can't say bittul like in perek Gimel?
Perek Yud, Alter Rebbe is not the word of perek Yud is Alter Rebbe in perek Yud is showing how the spheres of miyuchad Eibishter. The goal in perek Yud is not about bittul. The goal in perek Yud is showing how even though we used all these terms of the Eibishter, but these are all completely miyuchad ima yisbarach. These terms are one with the Eibishter. We're not saying they bottle.
As opposed to being bittul to the Eibishter?
As opposed to be bittul in the way of completely insignificant, inexistent. Other, these are terms, these are elikus energies which are completely one of the Eibishter, not separate from the Eibishter. Mashain Kain, the Nivroim are separate entities which are bottled in Tzias.
So, but what's the actual chiluk? What if you say if the
because once Nivroim
are totally bottled?
We're not going to call the Eibishter Shulchan, but you will call the Eibishter Elikim or Kel, because Elikim and Kel is the way these spheres are miyuchad with the Eibishter. It's one with the Eibishter. It's a terminology for the Eibishter. Shulchan and Kisei is not sure they bottled themselves on the Eibishter. Not going to call the Eibishter Shulchan and Kisei. They're bottled. They're in existence. These other energies are miyuchad. They're completely one the Eibishter. So therefore, the mashal is two different aspects of shemesh. One's the way the shemesh is a disconnected shemesh. One's the shemesh. But it's a mocker to shine.
So he's saying so for example, Moshe Rabbeinu, he was nachnuma, total bittul. But so how do you say Moshe Rabbeinu is one with Eibishter? You say it's one in a way of bittul, right?
Moshe Rabbeinu is God's kind. Moshe Rabbeinu is Yeshkin with the rest of
the okay. But okay, but you're saying in general, you're saying Eibush is everywhere, right? Like the famous question, oh, Eibush is everywhere, so why can't I serve right?
Because everything is bought. Right. The part is everything's bought to the Eibush.
Everything bought, they say, by serving it, you're serving it and not Eibush. Yeah.
You're making it a separate material.
Okay. So you're saying, but the midos of the Eibush, Elikim, Kale. You're saying over there. You're saying. So what? So you're saying
one with the Eibishter. It's
okay, at the same time, you can't serve so to say the midas the Eibishter. You have to serve the Eibishter. Meaning, even though it's the midas,
that's a word, right? But they're not separate from the Eibishter. They're one with the Eibishter. Elikim is Eibishter in this sense.
Okay.
It's not the same way Teman Chez Eibishter.
Fine, but isn't there a part from the Rebbe? I don't know which Maimer is the Maimer maybe of B'yamashti Asar. That there's the part that you don't even serve the ones who serve the Eibishter. But there's a part you're not even serving the middays of the Eibishter, meaning you're not serving Kale or Elikim or Chesed.
Yes,
you're serving Taka Eibishter Alein.
100%.
Only the Eibishter.
And when you use the word Kel Elikim, we have to realize that this is Eibishter. It's not Kel Elikim. It's not a mitzvah chesed tzakbara. It's Eibishter, which is beyond that, which is within that, which is beyond that. Yeah, but by the way, I'm not going to go through now. If you look at the back in the Mafteach of Tanya, the way that they made it, if you look for the Mashal Pitel Shemesh B'Shemesh, the Rebbe brings perek Gimel and perek Yud. But then on the word Bittel, you have perek Gimel. On the word Yichud, you have perek Yud. So where the Mashal is in both. The Bittel, the Rebbe says perek Gimel, Yichud, the Rebbe says perek Yud. So the Rebbe in the Mafteach was already taught us the different ways of looking at it.
Wow.
Very good.
Yes,
okay.
Good.
As Rabbi Sunta said, Mr. Shem, we're going to go on to the Chelik Rishon of Tanya, the first Chelik of Tanya. The next year we're going to be Mam Sharav Yantif. I guess we'll confront Rabbi Sunta how it's going to work. And if Chevra available, and what my schedule is, like in 2 weeks' time is Lel Erev Rosh Hashanah. Okay, I guess we'll confirm what exactly the matzah will be. People are going to be in the headspace. Maybe Dafka should be in the headspace. You say the chayt work for you?
If it works for me, that shouldn't be a problem. For me, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. We'll assume it's on unless we hear otherwise.
Well, one second. Saying next time we are going back to perek Aleph of Chelik Rishon.
We're going to go back to Chelik Rishon, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. 1 second. What happened to perek Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, or Shar Hayichud VeHemuna? There's more to it. If the Sherm stopped here, why didn't Alter Rebbe stop at perek Yud then? Why is there perek Yud Aleph?
We'll get to that later. Yeah. You can eventually get to it, I think. It's just.
I don't use the word technical, but they seem to be a little more technical. That's what it seems like. Avram, if you're here, we'll take a look. Best during this week, we'll confirm. We'll send out exactly what it's going to be.
Okay, whatever. Yeah, you can go.
We'll see. Right.
By the way, you know what I wish? I always wish. In my Yiddish as a kid, I went to whatever. I was in the Chassidus, but I was in Yiddish, and I switched. I didn't like it because I'm from Australia. I didn't, even though my first language was Yiddish. I forgot. I always wished that Yoyel's, Tanya Sherm, Chassidus were in English. I always wish.
Shall I tell you a secret? Gabriel doesn't give sure when you're out in the base.
Yeah, you really? You know, amazing how he doesn't give?
Yeah, he doesn't. He also stops there. That's why I don't feel so bad.
Always wish Bechlal, you know, his Keich has learns.
Right now. You train yourself to understand him.
I mean, now really I could, but there's a bach in yeshiva, you know, that's what you do. And you go. I remember I used to once or twice. I sat in the shul. I decided I'm going to sneak into 770. I sat in the shul. I did. First, it was very hard to understand unless you're used to him.
Right, you have to get used to his language.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but now today's milas are today's chesrenas or today's milas. Now all the recording, all the availability, we should use it as milah. That's the word.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Shkach.
You started already?
What's that? Yeah. I started Wednesday. Yeah.
Oh, you're ready weekend? Oh wow. Okay, I still have 2 or 3 days. Okay. Very good.
Okay.
I realized you started already because when I tried learning with Daniel, he said I'm so stressed out. I have all this stress. You're learning terribly. What's the stress? So we weren't able to learn before.
Yeah.
It was
like
tough weekend.
His load has grown.
Yeah.
Daniel's load has grown, I guess, a lot.
Fine. Okay, good. So it's not forever.
Very good. Okay. That's it. All right.